Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us here tonight. We have a fantastic program set aside for you that we're going to be talking about social justice, immigration, the inspiration of Frances Cabrini, and we're going to feature an interview that I had the good fortune to be involved with on Friday. So I want to welcome everyone. And it's really good to see everyone here today. I see people starting to sign in. And I just want to thank all the kids that came on out for our game time mass today at the 12 o'clock noon mass. And, our youth group afterwards. So I want to thank Patty Gardner, the peer ministers that were there, Marilyn Ryan for being helpful and letting us use half the gym. So it was really a great day, and I want to just say thank you before we start our lesson to everyone that was involved with all that. All right, so let's get us into the lesson. All right, once again, we are going to be talking about some social justice issues and Mother Cabrini. My name is Michael Fusco, and I'm the Director of Religious Education here at St. Helens for grades 5 through 10. And it's always a pleasure to be here on a Sunday night to go through our lesson. And if you're watching this live, we want to say thank you for everyone that's joining us here live. And for all those that will watch it post, please make sure that you follow along, answer the questions, and do pass this along. Make sure that you like and subscribe to our St. Helens YouTube page, because that's really how we get boost our numbers, and we know that you guys are all here. A couple of rules for the live stream. First and foremost, we want you to have fun. And we always want you to learn something from this event. And, we're going to welcome you guys through the chat room. The chat room is going to be used sparingly. I will let you know when we should be using the chat room and if we need to stop using the chat room. The chat room, as always, is monitored by our staff. Please like and subscribe to our channel because that really helps St. Helens out a lot. All right, well, let's just get right into this short video. Today's spotlight lesson is going to be focused on the life of St. Frances Cabrini, and today I'm outside her shrine here in beautiful New York City, and we're going to be talking to some people inside about her inspiration, her life, and we're going to learn a lot more about St. Frances today in our spotlight lesson and all the work that she's done with immigrants and orphans and building schools and being all over the world and really inspiring so many people and touching their lives. So today's lesson is all about that. I'm looking really forward to our lesson tonight, but also to our interview here today at the shrine. Okay, so I am back. Let us open with our opening prayer. And yes, I was at the shrine and I did all the filming. The interview was actually done through the director at the shrine and my good friend Joanne DePasquale Parent, who is works for the Archdiocese. She oversees so many different aspects of the catechetical office, and she's become a really great friend and an inspiration. But let's start with our opening prayer. So everyone out there, if you could start, in the name of the Father, Son, Holy Spirit, Amen. Today is the solemnity of our Lord Jesus Christ, King of the universe. If you were at Mass, we talked about that. God of life and love, in every time and place you call your people to serve you. No one is too young to praise you. No one is too old to respond to your call. Help us answer your call with all our hearts, turning away from sin to follow Christ's example. Show us how to share the good news with others in our words and in our deeds. Through Christ our Lord, amen. And that prayer does come from Liturgy Training Publications. Today's lesson, we're going to challenge you to think beyond your family, your school, and your community. Some of the terms and concepts are big and can be very difficult to understand. That's one of the reasons why we're going to break this down in the most simple way, but the interview at the shrine should help us understand some of these bigger issues. Parents, I encourage you that you watch this video and help explain some of these ideas and concepts with your child post-lesson, because it is big and we're going to be tackling some, Catholic social justice teachings. And if you want to go deeper by looking up Catholic social teaching from Catholic websites such as the USCCB, Ascension Press, our Sunday Visitor, or you could visit the Mother Cabrini website at www.mothercabrini.org. So that's really what we're going to be talking about and leading into today. The goal of today's lesson is that we are going to look at the life of St. Francis, Mother Cabrini. We're going to learn about Catholic social teaching on compassion for all people and all stages of life. And Mother Cabrini did an excellent job of respecting people's dignity and showing them love and compassion and mercy in very difficult situations. So who is St. Francis Cabrini? Well, we're going to hear a little bit about her life through the director at the shrine. But, Frances was the youngest of 13 children. She was born on July 15th, 1850, in a small village called St. Angelo Laggiado near the city of Milan. She grew up enthralled by the stories of missionaries, made up her mind to join a religious order. Because of her frail health, she was not permitted to join the Daughters of the Sacred Heart, who had been her teachers and under whose guidance she obtained her teaching and certificate. You're going to find out that it wasn't an easy road for Frances to become a sister. She had a lot of challenges. In 1880, with 7 young women, Frances founded the Institute of the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. She was as resourceful as she was prayerful, finding people who would donate what she needed in money, time, labor, and support. She and her sisters wanted to be missionaries in China. But she was friends with Pope Leo, and when she went to go meet with the Pope, he told her this famous line, "Not go to the east, but to the west, to New York rather than go to China as she had expected." She was to help the thousands of Italian immigrants already in the United States. We're going to hear a little bit more about that through our interview. In 1889, New York seemed to be filled with chaos and poverty. Into this new world stepped Mother Francis Cabrini and her sister companions. Cabrini organized catechism and education classes for the Italian immigrants and provided the needs of the many orphans. She established schools and orphanages despite tremendous odds. Soon, requests for her to open schools came to Francis Cabrini from all over the world, and she did. She traveled all over. She went to Europe, Central and South America, and throughout the United States. She made 23 transatlantic crossings and established 67 schools, hospitals, and orphanages. Mother Cabrini, well, you're going to hear something special, and I'm going to ask you if you could remember that. But she had a very big challenge when it came down to her travels. Her activity was relentless until her death on December 22nd, 1917 in Chicago. In 1946, she was canonized by St. Pope Pius the 12th. In recognition of her holiness and service to mankind, she was named Patroness of Immigrants in 1950. Today, the missionary sisters lay their collaborators and volunteer work as teachers, nurses, social workers, administrators, and members of the institutional boards of trustees. They can be found on 6 continents and 17 countries throughout the world, wherever there is a need. Here's a quote from Francis. Every human being is created in the image of God and redeemed by Jesus Christ, and therefore is invaluable and worthy of respect as a member of the human family. St. Francis Cabrini was really led by the Holy Spirit. And we're going to watch a video. It's about 13 minutes long, and I just want you to stick with it because it really covers a lot of her life. And we're going to learn about some of her fears and, some of her struggles too. But the great thing that I've learned about St. Francis was that she totally put her trust in God. Now, today at Mass, we talked about the solemnity of Christ the King, the creator of the universe. And why wouldn't we put our trust in our God? So she always felt that if I needed something, the help would come, the money would come, the people would come. She was extraordinary in putting her faith in the hands of God. We're going to learn a little bit more about that through the videos. But before we watch that, I want to go over some Catholic social teaching, and we can go through that afterwards when we ask you some questions. But one of the most important things about Catholic social teaching, and this is your faith. So you in middle school, this is your faith. And we're here to promote and defend human dignity, respect other people. We want to attend to the whole person. So that means, their body, their mind, their spirit. We need to attend to your friends who might be struggling in any of those areas. Care for the poor and vulnerable persons. There is such suffering and a great need in our world that we need to care for those people who are less fortunate. Now, today, our parish was handing out turkeys and, boxes of food that you guys maybe have donated or your parents went and shopped. We're respecting people's dignity around Thanksgiving and giving them a whole meal and making sure that they can have something good to eat when maybe they couldn't afford it. And prices of things are really high right now, so there's a lot of people who are struggling. We always want to act on behalf of justice. We want to have stored resources, and that stewardship, we have that word at our large group session that means to take care of somebody else, of something else, to be a good steward. We want to be a good steward of the environment, of our community, but of the people there as well. We want to act in communion with the church. Catholic social teaching is based on and inseparable from our understanding of human life and human dignity. Every human person is created in the image of God and redeemed by Jesus Christ, and therefore is invaluable and worthy of respect as a member of the human family. I know that this is big words. I know that some of the things that we're talking about today may seem confusing. Please make sure that you talk with your parents, and you could Google a lot of things to find out more. But what it really comes down to is that God loves us so much, and every single person is important and special and unique and needs to be treated as such. You're going to learn about how, Mother Cabrini treated other people with respect and how she took care of them and loved them. Here's another big word and a concept that I want to talk about before we show the video. And that is that her primary role of going to New York City was to care for people that migrated from Italy to the United States. And they came here and they had nothing. They couldn't speak the language. They were very poor. And, as such, it was hard for them to find work and do a lot of things. So let's talk about this word immigration. Immigration is the process of moving to a new country with plans to live there permanently. People who move to a new country are called immigrants. But the point of view from the old country, those same people are called emigrants, people who move away permanently. Well, there's three main reasons people would leave their own country. Mostly unemployment opportunities to escape a violent conflict, environmental factors, education purposes, or to reunite with family. A lot of people come here to the United States, or, in the time of Mother Cabrini, that they wanted other opportunities. They wanted better employment, better jobs, better education. Sometimes people must leave their home country because of war and move to a newer or safer place, but they may not always be welcomed by the people who live there. All right, so we're going to get back to these questions, but let's watch our first video, and this is really going to introduce us to the person of Frances Cabrini, and let's see what we can learn from her, and then we're going to go back and we're going to answer these questions.
Welcome, everyone. We are here today with Julia Attaway, who is the executive director for the Cabrini Shrine here in New York City. So we are here actually at the shrine to interview Julia to learn more about St. Frances Cabrini. So Julia, tell us a bit about St. Frances Cabrini. What was she like? What can you tell us about her personality?
She's an amazing woman. She is a strong woman. She was a businesswoman. She was a very gentle woman at the same time. She was not someone you could ride over easily. She was born in 1850 in northern Italy, and she was very sick. She was born 2 months prematurely, which meant that, even nowadays, if you're born that early, you still have a lot of health problems. And she had health problems her whole life. But she was born into a large family and that was very, very faithful. So she had that huge benefit. Not all of us do have that benefit.
Yeah.
But what's interesting about that in some ways is that she used her faith to help people who didn't have faith. And she used that to help them grow and to learn to love Jesus. So she was born, and it was not easy. She was in rural Italy, and at that time, by the time she was 10 years old, she'd seen 4 of her siblings die. She herself had tuberculosis, which meant that her lungs were very weak. And when she was a little girl, she knew she was called to be a missionary. She knew she was called to be religious. And so she would go to a stream near her uncle's house, and she would make paper boats and fill them with violets that would be her missionaries and float them off down the stream to go to China.
Wow.
Because she knew that she felt she was called to the Far East. When she was about 9, she fell in the river, and she almost drowned. And that left her with a lifelong fear of water. And we all have deep fears. We all have fears that can prevent us from doing things that we want to do or that God is calling us to do. And that's interesting in the long run, because in order to be a missionary in the late 1800s, the only way you could get to another part of the world was by ship. So as she grew up and became a missionary, in fact did become a missionary to other parts of the world, she had to cross the ocean 23 times.
Oh, with this fear of water.
With the fear of water. And in those days, to get across the ocean could take 9 days, or 10 days, or 11 days. And she would go across water in order to do what God called her. She wouldn't get in a boat for any other reason. There was a time she was off the coast of Panama and hadn't been without the Eucharist for 10 days. And there was a church on shore. And she hired a rowboat in high seas so she could go make her communion.
Oh, all with the fear of water.
With the fear of water.
Nothing
So
to stop. Wow.
it's very interesting that that she was able to work through the fear. She knew God calls us. God doesn't want our fears to stop us.
That's right.
Yeah, we hear over and over and over again, be not afraid, be not afraid, be not afraid. What does that mean in reality? It means that we have to look to Jesus.
That's right.
And we have to look to his love, and we have to trust in his love to pull us across those waves.
Yeah, and that's why St. Francis was so
She's
inspiring.
very brave.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons that she is very brave.
Yeah.
So she grew up and wanted to become a religious, knew she was called, and the first time she asked to join a religious order, she was told, no, you're too sick. You're too weak.
Wow.
So here's a weak woman who wants to do big things, and we're all weak. We're all weak in our own ways.
It's true.
And so that's another thing that I think that she can particularly help us with is understanding our weaknesses and how not to let our weaknesses interfere with what God's calling us to do. So she asked to join a second order and was told no. She asked to join a third order and was told no.
Wow.
And so she became a school teacher.
Okay.
She was trained as a school teacher and in fact was an educator her whole life. But she's called to do something and yet she couldn't. And we all know that feeling too.
Yes.
Of thinking, oh, I really want to go do that, and there's this frustration, and there's this obstacle that's in the way. And she was very good at understanding that God's time is not our time, that if we're going to serve God, we have to operate under his will and in his way and in his time. So she worked as a school teacher for a number of years and then was asked to go to become administrator of an orphanage in a nearby town. And she went. It was a very difficult situation. She was able to become a sister at that time, a religious sister.
Okay.
However, it was a very difficult situation. It was not a well-run order, and in fact, she was bullied by the superior. So here she's finally gotten to where she thinks she's supposed to be, or where she knows she's supposed to be,
Right.
and it didn't turn out the way she was expecting. So what do you do in that situation?
Well,
How do you respond? What Mother Cabrini did was to say, okay, God, you put me here. Show me how to love you in this situation.
Wow.
Show me how to find my comfort in you alone. Show me how to rely only on you and not on my circumstances. Not on the circumstances for happiness, not on the circumstances for joy, because we can all be in situations where things are very, very difficult and we're very, very unhappy. And it doesn't mean Jesus doesn't love us. And in fact, Mother Cabrini would say that when there's difficulty and there's a cross, we know that Jesus is with us.
Wow. That's so true.
It is. It really is. It's hard. We tend to see difficulties as obstacles.
Right.
And she just saw it as the environment in which God is asking us to love him.
Beautiful. Absolutely. Okay, so she's in this order where she's being bullied. She's unhappy, reaching out to God for comfort. What next? I'm on the edge of my seat.
Well, after 6 years,
Oh.
6 years, long time, they dissolved the order. And she was asked to form her own at the age of 30, which is pretty young.
Wow.
And so she asked to form an order, which eventually became named the Missionary Sisters of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. She had very, very deep devotion to the Sacred Heart. And in fact, you can see behind the altar here, there's Mother Cabrini, the Sacred Heart, and the Blessed Sacrament, which is how, so she was driven by her love of the Sacred Heart. And the Blessed Sacrament, of course, is how we know Jesus' love for us today.
That's right. That's right. Beautiful. Okay, so she
Okay,
starts
so now
this
we've
new
got
order.
her. We've got
All
her
right,
there.
So she's got this new order.
She's in northern Italy. She's got 6 sisters that she starts with.
Okay.
And
where did these sisters come from?
they were actually from the novitiate of that particular order where she had been before. So over the next 8 years, the order grows to 140 women.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And they did work in schools and orphanages in northern Italy. At some point in there, she went and it became a pontifical right order.
Okay.
So, which means that it, instead of reporting into the local bishop, it reported into Rome.
Wow. Okay.
So, in about 1888, she was approached by Bishop Scalabrini, who was canonized in October.
Oh.
And Bishop Scalabrini was concerned about what was called the Italian problem.
Okay.
And the Italian problem was that in the prior decade, almost 1 million Italians had fled primarily southern Italy and moved to the United States and to Central America in search of better opportunities, because most of them were entirely uneducated and had no skills. It was unskilled labor. And they went under what was called the Padrone system. I may say that word wrong, but I believe but it's spelled Padrone. And so they came kind of like coyotes, guide people to the US today, but they would also get them jobs when they got here.
Okay.
And it set up a system that the Pope at the time called akin to white slavery, because the conditions were so awful. And we tend to think of, and it was, in fact, the United States as a land of opportunity, but these people were coming in at the very bottom of the pecking order. And we might hear in history books about no Irish need apply. This is the next wave of immigration, and they were way below that.
Wow.
They were underpaid, they were dirty, they were poor, and they were actually asked to worship in the basement of churches so they didn't mingle with the rest of the people who could afford to pay and make offerings.
Right, right.
On top of that, there were very few Italian priests in New York City at the time. And so the people who were here, these hundreds of thousands of very, very poor people, could not make their confessions. They had no one to teach them catechism in their own language. So they were really unchurched at the same time. So Bishop Scalabrini asked Mother Cabrini to consider coming to the United States. And she prayed about it. Remember, she's always, for now 30 plus years, she's thinking she's going to China.
Right, right.
And this is a big shift, like 180 degrees.
Yeah, totally.
She's going in a different
direction.
direction. So then she prayed about it. She talked to various people and finally went to see Pope Leo XIII.
Herself.
She knew him quite well.
Okay.
I mean, they were friends.
Okay.
And you see that over here in the mosaic. So she went and she asked him what his opinion was of what she should do. And he said famously, not to the east, but to the west. And with that, she said yes. Now, the year that she agreed to come, a doctor had told her she had about 2 years left to live.
Oh, wow.
And for most of us, that would not be what we do with the last 2 years of our life.
I'd be booking cruises.
Or something, right? And Mother Cabrini's view was exactly the opposite, because if you only had 2 years left to live, why would you get on a boat when you were afraid of water?
Right.
Go to a country you did not speak the language, serve people in dire poverty, and her perspective was, that's a great thing to do. If you only have 2 years left to live,
wow,
what better thing to do than to go and serve God's people?
Wow, how beautiful.
So she came. She came. And she walked into the slums of New York in the area that was called the Murder and Night District.
Oh, wow.
And within a week of walking through those streets, had over 300 kids signed up for catechism classes.
Wow.
Within a month, she had an orphanage set up. Because in these working conditions where the danger was, the housing was terrible and the working conditions were terrible, the death rate was very high.
Sure.
And the injury rate was high. And so there were a lot of kids who literally lived on the street. And so she started this orphanage and moved on from there. If you have orphans, you have to teach them. And again, she was an educator. She had a beautiful philosophy of education, which began with, don't shame a child. Never shame a child. Because in order for all of us to grow, We have to know we're loved.
That's right.
Okay, so that is the first video. In the chat, tell me what you learned about Mother Cabrini. What was one or two things that stood out to you, that was presented to you about her life? I mean, I have a whole bunch of notes here. So what really struck you guys? Please use the chat right now and we'll post some of your comments. So let's go through. All right, so here's the first one. Yes, she helped Italian immigrants, and that was a really big focus for her. That she helped immigrants, yes. She did have a big fear of water, and that's what made some of her trips, back in the day. Right now we could jump on an airplane and be anywhere, within hours. Back in the 1800s, you had to get on a ship and you had to, it took 9, 10, 11 days, and she had a big fear of water. So that is definitely one thing about Mother Cabrini. Here we go. She put others before herself. And that's one of the key elements of our lesson here today. When we talk about dignity and social justice, is that we want to always put others before ourselves. And that's a really big key of today's lesson. All right, Mother Cabrini organized religion classes. I was blown away by the, stats that, within a week of coming to America, within a week, she had 300 kids signed up for religious education so that they could learn about their faith. To me, that's pretty amazing. All right, she chose to help people with her last years of life. And, truth be told, that she lived more than those 2 years, but that was the diagnosis at the time. So, yes, she was told you only have 2 years to live. And, she, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to go out and party, I'm going to be with my friends and do things with my family, she was so devoted to her faith. She thought the best way to live out my last 2 years is by bringing Jesus to other people. Really good here in the chat. All right, so the chat, you guys are really doing a good job here answering the questions. And Jeff says, I also learned that her faith in God helped her get through her struggles. Now, we talk about that a lot. Our last lesson, was on the prayer process. And we really want to be talking about putting our struggles to God. And Mother Cabrini was famous for saying, I'm going to give it up to God. God will provide for me. God will provide the money, the work, the manpower, whatever it needs to be done. God will provide that. And, that's pretty amazing. Okay, here we go. So, I think that she was really amazing. And one of the things that she did was help a bunch of immigrants from all over the world. And with all her heart, she helped people even when she was sick. That is correct, even when she was sick. All right, so let's go through a couple of questions, and then I want to show you a piece of the second video. The second video is, a little bit long, so I will post that on our YouTube page so you can see the whole interview, both parts 1 and 2. But we want to be talking about her relic and kind of understand a little bit about that, and to learn a little bit more about Frances Cabrini in that second one. But let's take a look at the questions here today. And if your parents are here, this is a good time maybe to grab them, because we can ask them a few questions that maybe you don't have the answer to. I want you to go and ask your parents or grandparents about their lives. You could do that now, but I'm going to say after this session, you should do that. And, ask the question, did anyone from your family come from a different country? And, were there struggles? Were there successes? What was the story behind some of them coming here? Now, I can tell you for myself, both my mom and dad were born here in America, but my dad's parents had immigrated from Italy. And, my memories of my dad's dad was, I didn't get to know him that well because he didn't speak English well. And he was a little bit older, and my dad's mom had died when he was a teenager. So I never got to meet her. So, but, in my family, I'm really, I guess, second generation here in the United States. My dad was born here, but his parents came here. So talk to your family about your family history and who came from different countries and what was that experience like. As a middle school student, how can you be like Mother Cabrini? Let's put that question in the chat. What are some of the things so far that you've learned about Mother Cabrini that you could be more like her? Let's see what you guys have to say. And then, can you help someone with homework or maybe learning a sport? That's respecting them. And, you may not be able to do some of the things that Mother Cabrini did, but what can you do in your school, in your town, your neighborhood to be more like Mother Cabrini? Can you help collect goods to help families who need school supplies and childcare products like diapers or toothpaste and brushes? And I'm going to give you a little preview. We're going to be asking you to do exactly that for our large group sessions in December, and we're going to donate that to Mercy House. All right, so let's get some answers for this question number 3. As a middle school student, how can you be like Mother Cabrini in your school, in your community, on your sports teams? Let's hear what you guys have to say. All right. So we've got, I could be more like her by putting everyone first before me. That is such a great lesson that we can learn from Mother Cabrini, to put others. Jennifer says, I can help my sister in her homework. Okay. You're starting at home, and that's really great. Donate and help people in need or homeless people. Very good. All right, so this is, a question about it's an answer. It says, my grandmother's mother and father had immigrated from Poland and Ukraine, and my grandfather's father had immigrated from Germany and Russia. So, so you have some really rich history here that you can go and talk to them. We have Thanksgiving coming on up, and that might be a great time to ask them to tell you stories about them coming here and, who helped them and how can you help other people. Let's get a couple of more responses here. I can help my friends and peers when they might be confused. Excellent. You can help kids and talk to them about faith and religion. When we talk about faith and religion, when we talk about our Catholic faith, that's called evangelization. And we talked about that at our last large group session. So really great here. Emily says, helping little kids learn more about the gospel. And you can do that. We do that right here at St. Helens through our sacrament program, but we have our Catholic Families Connect program, and we have our Kids Corner program where we take, the little kids that aren't in school yet, and we teach them about the Gospels. And I know a lot of you guys help out with that program as runners and do a great job. All right, put others before yourself. Bobby. All right, Bobby says, I can help spread the word of God to those who cannot go to church. And, great response, Bobby. And, that's exactly what we're talking about, is that you could tell others about God who can't go to church. Really, really great. Elizabeth says that she can help her parents around the house. And it's always good for us to join in and take some responsibility with those things. All right. Marissa says, our family is the first generation to the U.S. My family and I originated from the Philippines. Well, that is awesome. Thanks for sharing that. And that's why this lesson is really important, and for us to know that we need to be able to welcome the stranger. And we have to ask ourselves, how can you in middle school and in your families welcome those people that maybe are different, look different, come from different places? How can we welcome them and treat them with respect? If I learned anything from Mother Cabrini, was that she loved God so much and she saw God in every single person. And she wanted to make sure that every single person, was loved and taken care of. Jeff says, to give back to the community. You guys are doing amazing right here. Let's see what other questions. All right. So I want to look at question number 7 here. Have you ever been the stranger in a new school or joined a new team? What was that like? And did everyone make you feel welcomed? Or was it hard to kind of get and make new friends? If anyone has had this experience of being the stranger in a new school or joined a new team, or you tried something that you never did before, what was it like and how did people treat you? And maybe if you were treated bad, you can remember that so that you don't ever let that happen to somebody, that you always treat people as, a person of God. Let's see. Dakota says that, yes, she has experienced some of those things. Everyone was really nice, but it was hard. And I think that's a good lesson, is that when you are new, sometimes it's hard to be the new person or to be the stranger. And that's why we really want to focus on this lesson. They help me get better too. All right, so it seems like a lot of your experiences were pretty positive. All right, I'm going to put this here because I think it's important. So at first, when I entered the doors of Terrell Middle School, everyone was the odd one out, but I slowly was canceled out from friend groups, but they accepted me when they got to know me. And I think that's a really good lesson, is that when they got to know me, we got to get to know people. You guys reach out. Sometimes we like to just be with our friends, but when you spread out and you get to know other people, you find that you have common interests and that they're good people, and you can be friends with them. All right, Paula says, I've never been in this place, but I always try to be nice to the new student. And that's a big lesson that we can learn from Mother Cabrini. And I think it's very timely, that you guys are in middle school, that, you do have, people that come in that move here. All right, so one of the things that Mother Cabrini always struggled with was her health. Have you ever had to take care of someone who is sick? Was it hard or easy to do? She, got denied a lot from being sick. She struggled, but she was also very compassionate to other people. Anybody had to take care of someone who's sick? Maybe your mom or dad had COVID and they had to be in a different room. You had to, bring them food and stuff like that. So let's see if we can answer that question. Have you ever had to take care of someone who is sick? And what was that like? Was it hard or easy to do? Dakota said, yes, it was not the easiest. All right. Anybody else want to share their thoughts about maybe taking care of someone who is sick and what that experience was like? All right, what we're going to do, if no one's going to respond to that, then I want to show you part of the second video, and we're going to learn about the actual relic of Frances Cabrini. All right, we got a couple of questions there. Here we go. Natalie has something really important to say. My great-grandma from Italy had dementia, and when I was younger and often helped her eat or read and have fun. What a really good thing is that sometimes when people experience that, they can't remember things. You took the time to help them eat or maybe just shared a meal with them and, read to them. That's really good. Let's see. All right, so Marissa said, my dad had gout when it was hard because he could not walk temporarily. And if he tried to walk, it hurt so much. So it's really important that we're there to be compassionate. And when we can help people in our own family, we can learn these lessons. All right, let's check out video number 2. And let's learn about the relic of St. Frances Cabrini. Now, one of the things that I saw in the chat before was like, at the shrine, do they have her relic? And the answer is yes. And when you watch the interview, you're going to see the two people standing here. And then in the back, there's a glass case. And that is the actual body of St. Frances Cabrini. 90% of her bones are in that glass case. So let's check out this second video and learn a little bit more about St. Frances Cabrini. And I'm going to jump around. So if the video seems like it's skipping or something or fast forwarding, I'm just going to move to certain points so that We don't have to watch the whole video, but we could go to certain things.
Absolutely. So when she came here to New York, did she have any allies here? Any people that she can
She had
work
letters of introduction.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she could go see, but when founded there, and she died there.
How old was she?
She was 67.
Wow. For someone who was told she was only going to live
2
2 years,
yes.
went to 67.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So it's almost 40 more
Another
years.
beautiful witness to the grace of God, right?
Yes.
The power of God.
Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. Okay. And so she passes in Chicago.
Yes, of heart-related things. By then she had had, all through her adult life, she had hemorrhages. So we have lots of letters. Oh, sorry, I couldn't respond. I've been sick in bed for 2 weeks with a high fever. She developed malaria later on. She had chronic lung problem because of tuberculosis as a child. So she was sick a lot. Even what they said was true. She was too sick, except she wasn't too sick. She was trusting, and she ended up doing all these things. But she died in Chicago in 1917, and then her body was moved here to New York, not New York City, but to the grounds of the orphanage that was a large orphanage that was across from Poughkeepsie.
Okay.
So she was, her body was put in a mausoleum there. And then once they knew that the cause for her beatification was going to go through, they moved it down here to New York City, and it was in the high school chapel. And eventually, once this building here was built in 1959, then it was moved in here.
And so now we have the relics right here behind us.
Yes.
Here are the relics, the full body relics of St. Francis Cabrini. And I have to say, it is an absolute privilege and amazing feeling to be so present to her relics right now. So, Julia, what can you tell us about relics and the importance and the role of relics in the Catholic faith?
So Mother Cabrini's relics are here. Her body is here. The face and the hands are made of wax. It's a very Italian thing. And it's done for a very good reason, which is that our saints can't be just made of stone. They can't just be stories. They can't be paintings. They can't be nice feelings in our head. Saints are real. And we need to be able to see them as people. Because in order for us to imagine ourselves as becoming saints, we're people.
Right.
We have to be able to see that as a possibility. So it's very powerful when you come here knowing that her remains are here, just like you go and visit your grandma's grave or something else because you love her and you honor her, that you can come and draw physically close to her, seeing her as she was in person, knowing that she's in heaven with Jesus.
Right, right. That's amazing.
So that unifying, that sort of combination of heaven and earth is where sacred relics can really help us. And they're viewed as a tool of evangelization by the church. So she is, about 90% of her body is here underneath her habit.
That's amazing. And thank you for the great work you do preserving this, allowing people to come here. Now, about how many people come to the shrine a year?
We get well over 1,000 a month, so it works out, and more during peak periods. We have a lot of groups that come, so we'll get youth groups that come, and if you want to bring a youth group, I'm glad to talk to them. But we get older groups, we get people from all around the world. So in the past month, we've had people from Cote d'Ivoire, we've had Burkina Faso, Colombia, South America, Venezuela. We've had a lot of Venezuelans through here lately because of the bust-in migrant situation.
Okay.
So we get people from around the world, but mostly we get people from the region or people on vacation.
Okay, wonderful. And can you tell us some special stories about people who have visited the shrine?
You know, one of the things depends on who comes. You know, sometimes we get people who come in and it's a third generation Italian family where grandma or great grandma knew Mother Cabrini herself.
Wow.
And they'll come in and they'll have their name in a plaque on the wall, and the father will be showing his son, you know, this is grandma's name, and they touch the plaque and say a prayer. Sometimes I'll unlock the doors in the morning on a Sunday, and we'll have somebody come in and fall down on their face in tears because his wife was just apprehended at the border.
Oh,
Mother Cabrini is a patron saint of immigrants,
right.
and we do ask everyone who comes to spend some time in prayer for refugees and migrants around the world, uh, because they really need your prayers. There are people who have been living in tents for 10, 15 years. They
Unbelievable.
and cannot go home.
Mhm.
It's not just that it's not a it's a humanitarian thing that
Sure.
we're called on to do. We can help them, and she can help them.
Right.
So we do ask people to pray for them when they're here. Um, Other people who come, there'll be people. There's a big hospital down the street.
Mhm.
Somebody's in surgery, and there's a woman who came in a couple months ago whose husband had been in heart surgery and his heart had stopped, and she said when he came to at the end, he was revived, and she said, "What happened?" He said, "I saw this woman in my dream holding back a ball of fire,
Wow.
and she was dressed in, all black, long robes, and she pulls out a prayer card of Mother Cabrini and says, 'Her?'
Oh.
And he's like, 'Yeah.' She said, 'I'll be back.' And came up the street and knelt down here and said, 'Thank you, Mother
Oh,
Cabrini.' He didn't know who she was.
what a beautiful, and now he does. I bet
Now
he
he
does. But
does.
what a
Yeah,
beautiful story.
yeah.
That's amazing. That's
So,
what a incredible experience of St. Francis still alive
oh yeah,
with us
yeah.
today.
When we have people come, we have a little gift shop here, and people come in and tell their stories all the time.
Mm.
And every time we have new employees, they're like, "Does this happen all the time?" So yeah, it does actually. It's kind of the way it is. So
That's beautiful.
yeah,
That's really beautiful.
excellent.
Yeah. So about young people today,
Mhm.
how could knowing St. Francis Cabrini, the life of St. Francis Cabrini, how could that inspire young people and families today and parents today?
I think there are a lot of ways.
Okay.
The first is fear,
Mm.
because like anyone else, she had fears. And unlike most of us, she figured out how to help people through them, how to get herself through them, and to serve God through them. And if you have a fear, uh, she's a good person to talk to. Another way is in terms of what I call grounding in faith,
Hmm.
because her strength was a quiet strength. And she can help us learn to speak truth kindly, without fear, and kindly and boldly at the same time. Not shouting, not being forceful,
Mm.
but through the persuasion of having overflowing love.
Mm.
And the third way that I think she can help us the most is in opening our hearts to Jesus more, because that was one of her great prayers. Like one of my favorite prayers of hers is, "Jesus, carve your heart in mine."
Wow.
And she wanted her heart to be open.
Hmm.
She wanted it open to everything and every possible thing that Jesus wanted her to do. She didn't reserve parts of herself from him. And that's what makes her a saint, right?
Yeah.
That is sainthood. And and when we get stuck with holding on to things,
Mm.
and whether they're fears or desires or hopes or whatever it is that we're holding on to, she can model for us.
Hmm.
And when we pray with her, she can ask Jesus on our
Hmm.
behalf
Hmm.
to help us through that and to grow.
Yes. Earlier you were telling me.
Okay, I'm going to just stop that video right there for time reasons. But you can see that we got a lot of things in the chat here about her body being there. So, 90% of all of her bones are there, but her head and her hands are in Rome. And the question was, why are they there? And I don't have that answer, but I could definitely find out. And, relics are kind of a strange thing because we want to be able to go and be close to these saints. So when I held the relic of Padre Pio's glove that was stained with his blood, it was truly amazing. And, the people in Hawaii that received St. Damian's heel could go and venerate and be close to that saint. So we have the ability to be close to Francis Cabrini, and but I guess they want other people in Rome or in the Vatican to also be able to venerate her and be close to her. So that's what I'm thinking is why she's there. But watching that second video, it really helps me to know that if you have a fear, you may want to, say a prayer to Mother Cabrini or Francis Cabrini and to help you through your fears, because she had a fear of water. She really struggled with a lot of things. So she knows what we go through. And, praying for her intercession is a really good thing for us to learn. All right, so let's wrap up our lesson here today. But hopefully that you enjoyed the two videos with and learn more about Mother Cabrini and how you can model your life and be respectful to people who are strangers, people that maybe don't look and act like you, that you could welcome them. You could welcome them into your home, into your life, into your heart. And I think those are the big lessons on this solemnity of Christ the King, King of the universe, that we put our trust in God and in Jesus. And if we do that, amazing things will happen. Here is this kind of sick girl, and she catechized people. She nurtured to their whole body, their whole mind, and really gave a lot of people new life. So I want to thank all of you guys for the chat. The chat was excellent here today. This was a really, really great lesson, but I do have a couple of announcements here. Again, I want to thank everyone who came out to our Game Time Mass and our Youth Day. Thanks to all of the peer ministers, to Patty Gardner, to Marilyn Ryan for all of their help. Our next Spotlight lesson is on December 4th. I don't have a plan for that yet. We're working on finding another local saint with their relics here that we can explore their life, learn more about them, and how we can model our lives through them. Our next large group is our Trivia Advent session. That is December 12th or the 14th. We're inviting that one parent should join us for that session. It's a really great time because we do some Catholic trivia, some secular trivia, and then we lead into our Advent prayer service so that we can join together as a group, and really look forward to the coming of Christ in Christmas. We can celebrate together. But I'm going to ask that you guys bring a package of diapers size 3 to 6 and or baby wipes. All the products that I will get and collect at those large group sessions, I will personally deliver to the Mercy House in Newark. And the reason that we're doing that is that Mercy House takes a lot of people who, definitely have come from other countries that are poor, that don't have the resources to buy these things, and we want to be able to minister to them. So you, in a very, a little bit direct way, will be able to help those people, especially around Christmas, by providing baby products, toiletries, wipes, all those kinds of things. I'll send a list out via email, but you will be able to, welcome the stranger and help them in, their life and, a very stressful time, the holidays, that they may not be able to provide for their kids or their families. And we have so much. The next Game Time Mass is going to be Sunday, December 18th. And I want to wish all of you out there a very happy Thanksgiving. If you're going to travel, please travel safely. To all of our parents out there, we want to just say that you're such a big part of our program and that you too are safe. And, the chaos in your house isn't too crazy, so that you can cook and entertain and gather your family around the table. But I just ask that you guys keep Jesus in your hearts and minds as you experience those blessings and think of those that do without. Great lesson here today. I'm really proud of all of you for the work that you put in and the comments that you put in. And hopefully you could be inspired by the life of Frances Cabrini and that you can go and live every single day in her inspiration. That's it for us today. We're going to see you at our next Spotlight lesson, which is on December 4th, and our large groups in, the week after. That's it for us here tonight. We'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for participating.